All right, so I'm making this just to kind of review using setState. So remember in a functional component, when we have defined a function, we can use a hook from React. A hook is another word for a function. So we can use a function, pull it from React, and we can use that function to store state. And the reason state is valuable is because it is causing, when we change state or we cause a setState function to occur, then we will re-render the component and anyone that has a subscription to that state. So if we wanted if we wanted our HTML to change, we can store it in a state and the state can update that HTML, which will update the page, right? If we do not want the page, the HTML to change, then we do not need state. It is obsolete at that point. So I'm going to show you another one. We will say let cat equal the string cat. Just kind of demonstrate here. If I copy this, paste cat here, and on click, I want to change cat. I want cat to equal dog. And then, to demonstrate this well, I think I'm going to need to console log cat so we can clearly see that cat is indeed dog. And so React pays attention to state, not variables. So this is a variable, this is using state. So we have the word cat here, and when I click this button, it should change cat to dog. So if we click that, we'll see nothing happens, but if we go to the console, we will see that cat does in fact currently equal the word dog. However, it has not changed our HTML on the page. So that's why state is important. Now, if I, for instance, changed this and I said, okay, I actually want it to be changed. So I can use useState to watch this, right? And I could say, I'll say cats this time, set cats is equal to useState. And useState is a function, and we're going to pass it the string cats to begin with, right? So we'll say h2 here, we'll do h2 here, and we'll say cats. Except this is a variable, right? This is something we've already declared. So when we do this on click, we'll change that, but we'll also set cats equal, we'll say, all right, so set cats, I want you to be set to, what do we want to send it to? Let's send it to dogs, because why not? So if we click this button, cats should equal dogs, and it does. But again, our word cat here is not being changed. It is reevaluating this component. So what's happening is we're saying let cat equal cat in function. So it starts at the top, right? Import state, run the function app, create this. What's the current value of this and this? What's the current value of cats? Let cat equal cat, explicitly defined. Okay, we have functions, return this div, return this h2, return whatever the current value of state is, return this button, return this div, return whatever the current state is of that, return whatever the current state of cat is, which is cat because we defined it here, right? So this reference, it's obsolete, and that's why we need React to watch for these changes, right? All right, now to the main course. I wanted to show the two differences of using setState. You can pass it a function like this, so with a function passed to useState, or you can pass it a value, right? So this click counts is a number set to 0 initially, and then we will add we'll add 1 to 0 initially, right? So 0 plus 1 is 1. And then when we click it again, 1 plus 1 is 2. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. And then 3 plus 1 is 4, and so on and so forth. So on every click, we're running increment after seconds or increment after 1 second, right? These I show the differences of passing a function and a value. Now, the only thing that I wanted to point out here is the set timeout. So what set timeout is doing is it's saying, hey, you are going to run this function. We're going to run whatever is inside of me after a certain amount of time. And then we will fire it. And I want to show you something interesting. If we click this with a function once, it says, all right, so new click count was 0, right? You'll see that right here. So click count was 0. We're referencing the current, but wait, line 10, wasn't this supposed to be 1 after I ran this function, you might ask? Actually, remember React is going to schedule updates, right? So when we run this block of code, the current instance of click count is 0. So when we say 0, or when we say, hey, give me click count, it will be 0 because that is the current instance while this update is rendering. So the update hasn't happened over the whole component yet, and we aren't, so when I say setState is going to re-render the component, it doesn't start rendering once we run this function. It waits until this is complete. So when we are in the middle of this instance, we say, okay, we're going to render the component, and we are going to, and then we're going to grab, this is just a placeholder, we're going to use that placeholder plus 1. I'll get to this in a second, don't let that throw you. But if you look here, so click counts, the current value of click counts is 0. It is not the same as you might see here where we say let, or if we said cat is equal to dog, right? This is different. This is scheduling, this is saying we will schedule an update. And then this is during the same time as this, so this click counts will also be 0 during this time. So we can see that both of these are working the exact same right now. The error or the issue really becomes when we are going to click this button. What happens if I click increment after 1 second multiple times for the one without a function passed to it? What will happen is I'm going to click this button, and it will fire increment after 1 second, and then this function will fire, and then I will click it again within 1 second. So then what will happen is we'll have 2 set timeouts, which are waiting 1 second, are basically all being scheduled during the same time, right? And so then this will fire set click timeouts, or set click counts, and it's going to grab the current reference of click counts, which will be 0. And then we are going to see that this will be 1, but also any others that I click will also return the value of 1, because click counts will be the reference to, it's referencing the current state of click counts. So, and I'll just demonstrate that. So you can see I clicked it 3 times in the matter of 1 second, but we're seeing the number 1 here. So I did click increment after 1 second, and this value should be 3 on the page. And we can see if we go to our components, state is 1, right? It is not 3, but I did click it 3 times. So what is happening, what is different between this here, where we're passing in a value, and this function here? Specifically, what we're saying is give me the most, so remember this is a placeholder for a function. If I wrote a function here and I said Bob, and I said in this I want you to say bob.cat invoked. So what that tells us about Bob is for this function, Bob is going to be some kind of object, right? And it has a property on it called cat, which will be equal to a function. Right? If I said instead, I said Bob plus 9, we could infer that Bob would be a number, or maybe well, maybe a string if this was a string. But yeah, we can make inferences about Bob, right? But prev state, what is this giving back, right? We could console log it, I could show you, but what it is doing, it is grabbing the most recent version of click count, because that's the one this one is. So click count. It's saying, hey, are there any other calls during this render to click count? Have there been any other references to this value? If there are, give me what the result of that function was, and I want to grab the result of that function and add 1 to it. So currently, let's go through the first. I'm going to click this 3 times, or attempt to click it 3 times in 1 second. So what will happen is we'll say, give me the current value of click count. First, were there any references to click count? Or was set click count fired any other times during this render? No. So give me the current reference value, 0. 0 plus 1. Then it's going to say, okay, the second time during the 1 second, were there any other references to set click count during this update? Yes. Give me the value back that returned. That was 1. So now 1 plus 1. And then the third one will say, were there any references to set click count? Yes. Give me that value, the reference to that value, which is 2. And we'll do 2 plus 1, which is 3. And I'll try to do that. Hey, 4 clicks, that's what I'm talking about. And we see the number 4, whereas we see the number 1 here. Now you can see that we're still saying console.log, we're still saying click count, right? Because remember, this has not finished rendering yet, or rather the update hasn't come across through, it hasn't come through yet. Click count is still technically 0, but this is grabbing the references to set state. If there have been, passing this a function is the way to get the most accurate update. Now, do we need to do this everywhere? No. Is it the most accurate way to get data? Yes, it is. But if you are not updating, this is only an issue, right? If we are updating state in multiple places at the same time, the same state. So for instance, what we're doing here is I'm causing multiple updates to the same state 4 times, right? I'm causing, so 4 different updates are happening at the same time. That is where this is going to give you the correct response. But if you know no one else is updating that state, initializing that value to something like this is totally fine. And you do not need to explicitly say something like that, what we had before, or like this function here. So I hope that's helpful, just kind of breaking that down for you. And leave a comment if you have any comments.